Okay, in this video, we're going to redo example 1 using various forms of technology, which is actually going to be the preferred method for finding that F ratio. I'm not going to expect that you grind out all of those SS within, SS between calculations by hand unless you want to. Okay, so I'll show you 3 different nice methods using the graphing calculator, using an online calculator, and also using Microsoft Excel. Okay, so let's get started with that. All right, so just coming back to this, we're going to calculate the F ratio using technology. So I'm going to start from scratch using plan 1, plan 2, and plan 3, just as the raw data. So I'm going to start using the calculator. And so I'll open up the calculator here. And the first thing I want to do is I actually want to enter all of that raw data into different lists. Okay, so I'll go to stat and I want to edit. Okay, edit my lists. And looks like I already have some information entered from a previous something that I was doing. So I want to show you just real quick how to get rid of your lists. So let me quit out of there. If you want to delete the information that's in your lists and start fresh, rather than having to delete each individual item, what you can always do is you can actually go to stat and you can go to clear lists and press enter. And then I can just do a list of the lists that I want to clear. And so all of the lists are, if you press second and you can go down and you see L1, L2, L3, L4 down in the number keys here. So I'll just go second, L1, and then I'll do a comma and go second, and then for L2 and press enter, and it'll say that it's done. Those lists are now cleared. So if I go back to stat and press edit, those lists are empty. Okay, so just a cool little extra to clear the lists really quickly rather than having to try to delete them individually. Okay, so anyways, I have 3 separate categories. I'm going to enter the information for those different plans. So plan 1, it was 5, 4.5, 4, and 3. Okay, plan 2, it was 3.5, 7, and 4.5. Plan 3, it was 8, 4, and 3.5. Okay, so information is in the lists there, so I'll go second quit. Okay, and now I want to do the analysis of variance. So I go to stat, and I'm going to go over to tests, and it's all the way down at the bottom, which means I can press up to get to the bottom one, and there it is, Anova. Okay, so I want to click on Anova for analysis of variance, and I'll click enter. And then here is where you just want to do a list of your lists. Okay, so we have 3 separate categories here. So I just want to make sure I go second. I want L1 in there, comma, second, L2, comma, and however many you have, you need to just keep listing them. But for this one, we have 3. I'll close the parentheses there and press enter. And there is all of the information. Okay, way faster than doing it by hand, right? But there's a lot of information here that we have to interpret correctly. Okay, so first and foremost, I mean, it gives you the F right away. And so here it is, we calculated it by hand. So let's just compare our answers with what the calculator is giving us. The F ratio is the 0.3769. And that's what we got when we did it by hand, 0.3769. Okay, so that's like what we really wanted to get very, very quickly. Okay, the calculator is also giving us a p-value. We're going to wait and think about that in the next section when we start doing our hypothesis tests. Okay, but yeah, p-value instantly, also very, very nice. Okay, but I am going to want us to be able to fill out this table here, the analysis of variance table with all of these different pieces of information. And so doing it by hand works, but I would say you don't need to do it by hand as long as you can understand the way that the different forms of technology are displaying it for you. Okay, so let's look at this. Notice that it has factor, and then it lists some things here, and then there's going to be another list under error. Okay, and that's why I wanted to say a lot of times the factor, that's the between part, but it's usually called factor with technology. And then for the error, that's the within part. So the error is usually what it's called when you're using technology. Okay, so we did all the calculation down there. So let's just compare and see that our calculator is giving us the same. Okay, so the factor, the SS, that's going to be the SS between, okay, because it's the factor part. So the SS between, we got 2.2458. And here it is, the SS between 2.2458. Okay, then it gives us the MS factor, which is the MS between, and that's 1.1229. And we got the MS between as the 1.1229. So that's looking good. Okay, it also listed that degrees of freedom of 2. Okay, so all of that is for the factor part, the between part. So it's giving us this row in that first set of information. Okay, and then if you scroll down, we have the error section. Okay, and the error section is the within section. Okay, so if we go down to the error section for the within, it lists the SS. So the SS error, we got 20.845, and so there it is, or 20.854. Okay, yep. So there's the error, the SS within. Okay, that's the error for the calculator there. And so we get 20.854. Okay, we had it rounded a little bit. And then the MS error, the 2.979. Okay, 2.979. So there it is, the MS error, which is the MS within. And then it also gives you the degrees of freedom error, and it should say 7, right? Yeah, it does say 7. Okay, so that's the way the calculator displays all of that information. And so if you're going to be using the calculator to get this table, which I am going to want you to be able to fill out a table like this, make sure that you understand the way that the calculator is displaying the information. Okay, because hey, if you want to do it by hand, be my guest, but the calculator displays all of the information for us. Okay, but most importantly, that F ratio, that F statistic, that is the first thing that the calculator lists up there at the top. That's what we're really interested in. And then of course, for hypothesis testing, that p-value. Okay, so that's how to do it with the calculator. Now I want to show you how to do it with an online calculator if you're not using the graphing calculator. So I've got some links up here for the different versions. Oh no, I have it down here. So after all that work, here is the using technology section. So we just did the calculator version, and so that was pretty straightforward to just create our lists. Okay, Excel, I do have a video, but I actually do want to show how to do the Excel version. So I'll do that after the online calculator. So here's 3 different options for online calculators. And I put a little note here because this first one is really good, but it requires each category to have at least 5 entries. And for the one that we're dealing with right now, we only had like 4 entries and 3 entries and 3 entries. So this one is not going to be useful for this particular example. Okay, good calculators. Here's another one. And this was actually a good one that I'm going to use right now because it allows you to have any number of entries. And then LibreText, like we've been using a lot, that one's actually really good, but it only calculates the F ratio and the p-value. It doesn't show us all of the SS and the MS numbers. Okay, so I'll do both, but I'll emphasize that the LibreText, it only gives us those 2 pieces of information. It doesn't give us all of that between and within stuff. Okay, so I'm going to use good calculators to do our example here. Okay, and again, with all of these free ones, just try to ignore if there's like, advertisements on the side. But anyways, here's our different groups, and the default is it gives us 3 options. But if you've got more than 3 groups, you can click on Add Group. Okay, but for us, we only have 3. So let's enter the information here. And so I'm going to separate it by commas. Plan 1 was 5, 4.5, 4, 3. Okay, plan 2, it was 3.5, 7, 4.5. And for plan 3, it was 8, 4, and 3.5. Okay, so there's the information, and I just click on calculate. And I think it already did it. Yep, it already did it. So it gives you instantly the F statistic, the F ratio. Okay, those mean the same thing. And that's the same value that we got, the 0.3794. Okay, that's the same value we got when we worked it out by hand and when we worked it out with the calculator, the 0.3769. So what does this one say? 0.3769. Okay, looking pretty good. It also instantly gives you that p-value as well, and we're going to use that for our hypothesis testing. Okay, it also, this one gives you a data summary, so it also gives you each of the separate groups, the mean of the groups and the standard deviation of the groups. But then here's the Anova summary table that I'm really talking about. Okay, so again, it breaks it down with the SS and the MS, and then it talks about between and within. Okay, so there's the F stat over there, and then of course the p-value. It does the degrees of freedom for the between, the within, and the total. And so it shows all of these different values that we got. So the sum of squares between, and so all of these values are sum of squares between, within, and total. And those are all of the same values. So just make sure that you understand, compare those side by side. We get the 2.245, 2.2458. Okay, so it's been rounded slightly differently. Okay, and then the total 23.099, we had it rounded 23.1. Okay, and then the degrees of freedom, they put the column over here on the left-hand side, but then we also have the mean square, okay, so the MS, and then the source of that variation between and within. And so there's those two, and then the F stat. Okay, so this is a really good website because it does give us that, that whole Anova summary table just like we want. Okay, and then just, ignore the advertisements because this is free. Okay. All right, let's go back and do another one. I really like using, all through the course, we've been using this LibreText, which is really good. But the problem with this one is it only calculates the F ratio and the F statistic, and the p-value. Now, there's no problem with that, but if we were asked to fill out that table, that Anova table with all of the SS between and SS within stuff, this doesn't give that to us. Okay, so if we fill out the data, let me just fill it out real quick. 5, 4.5, 4, and 3. Data 2, 3.5, 7, 4.5. Data 3, 8, 4, and 3.5. Okay, and then calculate. So that's the same F ratio, and that's the same p-value. And those are both extremely useful. And then of course we would be able to proceed with our hypothesis test from there, but it doesn't give us all of that SS between, SS within stuff that you might be asked for. Okay, so keep in mind this website, it gives us this useful information, but it doesn't give us the information that we need to fill out this whole Anova table. Okay, now I wanted to do a Microsoft Excel version. I know that I've kind of been just doing separate videos, but I think the Microsoft Excel is excellent. So I went ahead and just already entered those for the sake of time. So there's the plan 1, plan 2, and plan 3. So I have those entered. And then very quickly, it generates a beautiful Anova table for us. So you need to make sure that you click on data. Okay, so up at the top, you would click on data. Make sure that you've got this data analysis available here. And if you don't have that available, I have previous videos that you can find out how to enable that. And then click on that. And then I just want to make sure I click on the very first option here, Anova single factor. Okay, we're doing single factor. Okay, so one-way Anova. So make sure you click on the single factor and click OK. Okay, and then what I want to do for the input range, I'm going to go ahead and just highlight all of those. Okay, so I highlighted all of those, and I want to have it grouped by columns. Okay, I want to have the labels checked because I did call them plan 1, plan 2, plan 3. So that just includes the labels that I have them titled as. And then for the alpha, we'll deal with that later when we're doing our own hypothesis testing, but I'll leave it as the 0.05 because that's the common alpha. And then if I have it checked with a new worksheet, it'll just open up a new sheet at the bottom. So I'll go ahead and say, that's okay with me. I'll click OK. And so instantly it gives us that awesome summary and the Anova table there. So there's the SS between, the SS within, and the total. All those numbers are the same that we got. There's the degrees of freedom for between, within, and total. There's the mean squares between, the mean squares within. There's the F ratio, the p-value, and then don't worry about that critical value, although I think that comes from working out a hypothesis test using the classical method. Okay, which, yeah, I believe that critical value is coming from the chosen alpha. Okay, but for now, we're just stopping right here at the F statistic right there. Okay, so there they are, and it organizes it in much the same way that we have in the notes right here. Okay, the SS between, SS within, the degrees of freedom, and the MS between and within, all organized. And so Microsoft Excel does an excellent job of instantly making a really, really nice organized chart for you. Okay, so that's the way that we can get that F ratio. And then of course, moving forward with p-values and stuff like that into the hypothesis testing that we intend to do a little bit later. Okay, so to finish off this lecture, let's do one more example right here. And I'm just going to fill out this table, and I'm only going to use technology for this one. Okay, so I'm not going to do the whole thing by hand. We're just going to use technology, but I will make a separate video to pick up with that.